do an opening and have Dr. Foxworth on our webinar series, since it started many years ago with it just being me and him twice a week. So I'm super excited about today's presentation. Most of you are already providers with ChiroHealth USA, and so we're really excited to share this content with you. And Dr. Foxworth has some really great information that is going to make using CHUSA in your office so much easier and better. So for those of you who've never been on a webinar with Dr. Foxworth and are not as familiar with his background, he is the president of ChiroHealth USA, and he's also a certified medical compliance specialist. He has served for over 20 years on the Medicare Advisory Committee and served over 4 years as staff chiropractor for the GV Sonny Montgomery VA Medical Center. He is a past president of Conserva Care Corp. As many times I've said that, you think it'd get easier. A network that was selected by the state of Mississippi to serve over 195,000 state employees and teachers. It is his experience as a network founder and president and insurance liaison for many years that led to the concept and formation of ChiroHealth USA. He currently maintains a practice on New South Professional Campus, which is home to a large multidisciplinary spine center, offering services ranging from chiropractic to neurosurgery. He is in the trenches on a daily basis, facing the same challenges with billing, coding, and compliance, just like many of you. And I'm so excited that I kind of got ahead of myself, so please bear with me, so I apologize. So in today's handouts, you can find them in your control panel. So if you'll scroll down, click on handouts, you'll see CHUSA 101. Click those. You're going to love them. Great information that you're going to want to keep with you after today's presentation. You all know that you are muted for today's presentation, and we're going to actually try to do like a test. We'd love to be able to do a live Q&A with you today. So submit your questions throughout the broadcast, and what we're going to try to do is to unmute you so we can talk about those. So I'm going to try that real quick as a test. Dr. Harrison, I'm going to use you as my... Dr. Harrison, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Great. See, so
yeah.
It works. Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison, for being my guinea pig. And I'm going to go back to muting you real quick. So if you submit your questions throughout the broadcast, what we'll do is we'll unmute you so you have the opportunity to talk to Dr. Foxworth about your question, and he'll be happy to answer those live at the end of the presentation. So I'll stop taking up too much more of your time, and welcome Dr. Foxworth.
Thank you so much, Christy. And folks, this is kind of like old home week for me and Christy. We have been at this 5-6 years now, and it has been quite some time since we've done a webinar together. So, and you're always excited, Christy. It's not just about me. I get it. We have some great webinar presenters, and I think probably one of the best attended webinar series in the profession. And thanks for all you do to pull this together. This webinar is a bit unique. I don't think we've ever done one that is just for our current members, and I appreciate every one of you being a part of ChiroHealth USA, and hopefully it's been a benefit to your practice. But I hope you've also seen that as you're enrolling patients and the network is growing, and we're over some 3,000 practices now and 325,000 patients, it really enables us as a company to really give back and have a significant impact on the profession. And I appreciate
Dr. Foxworth, I think we lost your audio.
All right. Have you still got me?
I got you now.
Very good. So what we're going to do today, and I don't know which parts you heard or didn't, but this webinar is a bit unique. It is just for our members, and we haven't done that before. And it's going to really let us kind of talk as a family. This is kind of a safe zone. So any questions that you have about how you're using ChiroHealth, what you can and can't do with it, feel free and key those questions in, like Christy mentioned, and we'll open up the lines if we can at the end, provided technology continues to work with us. We are going to be talking about fees, and you've probably heard me say, wherever two or more shall gather, thou shalt not talk about fees. Just understand that what you cannot do is get with your buddies, your neighbors, by email or any other way and decide what each of you are going to charge. It's a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. So the discussion of fees on this webinar today are for instructional purposes only and should not be considered as a recommendation for any provider or group of providers. And so hopefully our attorneys are happy now. And let's see what we're having the issue with there we go. So you joined ChiroHealth USA, or most of you did, because you wanted to become more compliant. And quite frankly, that's why I started the company. But what I found, and what many doctors have found, is that as you become more compliant, it can actually lead to growing your practice when you're offering ChiroHealth USA. It can actually increase your profitability. And I know that sounds strange, and I've said before, you can't discount your way to success, but you can structure your financial policy and how you offer patients the opportunity to pay in such a way that more patients will be attracted to your practice and stay with your practice. So if you want to see more patients transition from insurance to private pay, stop seeing them run out when their insurance runs out, you want to see more families, you want to stop losing those shopper calls, if you want to compete with the in-network doctors even when you're out of network, and more recently, help patients deal with those crazy high deductibles and see them start and continue care in your office. And if you want to see over 90% of your Medicare patients willingly pay for non-covered service, you're in the right place, because that's exactly what we're going to cover today. You can do all of this as part of ChiroHealth USA if you know the right way to explain it. And we've got some simple scripts that can help you accomplish all of the above and really focus on growing your practice. I was speaking this past weekend in Phoenix for a ChiroTouch group, and we only had 6 doctors out of that group there that were part of ChiroHealth USA. And what really hit me and confirmed the need for this webinar is, as I was going over live how I would explain this to a cash patient or an in-network or Medicare or out-of-network, I had doctors and staff come up and say, "Doc, I was trying really hard to write down what you were saying. I want to get it word for word. It just sounded so easy." And the reality is, everything that we have provided you with, the scripting, is all in Microsoft Word. It's all on the website. It should have been part of your training. But the reality is, if you're like me, sometimes I don't read the instructions. That's a guy thing. I'm sure none of the ladies present are guilty of that, but that's what we tend to see happen. So we thought it would be great if we did a live webinar with me going over the exact scripts, how I might explain these to patients, and share that with you in hopes that it helps you get more patients to understand how ChiroHealth USA can benefit them and their family. So here's what to expect. I am going to go over the actual scripts, but you're also going to receive in your downloads these scripts in a Microsoft Word format. We're also going to send you a copy of this actual PowerPoint and a recording of this webinar. And my hope is sometimes you use this for a team training, or if you've got new members that come into the practice, new employees, you might use it as a tool to help train them. And then technology permitting, like I said, we'll open it up at the end to do some Q&A. Here's the most important goal. And you folks that are running our front desk and insurance offices, I don't know how you do it sometimes. All the crazy high deductibles, co-pays on some services, co-insurance on other services, these crazy high deductibles, that's tough enough. But then, and I'll admit this because I are a doctor, I have played let's make a deal with patients throughout the years. And what I have found is what we need to do, and docs, I'm challenging each of you, we need to set our financial policy, leave it alone, and let the professionals handle it from there. We need to stop sabotaging our front desk and our insurance departments by having this, like Larry Markson used to say, the mother, father, sister, brother deal. And, the buy 10 visits, get 1 free deal. And I actually had that conversation with some doctors from Kansas this past weekend. And the doc said, I do that all the time, and I didn't realize how it impacts my staff. And so I just want to encourage you, make everybody's life easier. You've already plugged in ChiroHealth. You have a set fee schedule. Let's just make sure that we stick to it and abide by it. So I want to clarify a couple of things about what ChiroHealth USA is and what it is not. Because believe it or not, there are still some people who are using this program who think it's just for cash patients. And nothing could be further from the truth. It is for every patient who has non-covered services. Now that can include cash. It can be Medicare for their non-covered services. It can be for patients with limited benefits. It can be for families and those patients who have high deductibles and copays. What it is not, this is not a time of service discount program. It's a contractual network agreement, much like your Blue Cross, Aetna, and Cigna. And so it is up to you when you collect your fees. So when you join ChiroHealth USA, what should have happened to your cash fee? You need to understand there is no such thing as a cash fee, and you need to remove that from your vocabulary. You should have one fee for each service. It should apply to every patient, regardless of who's paying the bill. And so your old cash fee is now your ChiroHealth fee. And again, you no longer should have a cash fee. You have the contractual network discounts for the patients that are paying out of pocket for their non-covered services, or for those patients with these high deductibles when they opt out of filing their health insurance. And we're going to discuss that in detail. Your actual fee is your one and only fee. You're going to get tired of hearing me say this, but I really need to drive that point home because that truly is the basis of having a compliant financial policy. And it usually is our highest fee, our PI or our workers' comp fee. Now, all of us know that it doesn't matter what you charge, different payers are going to pay us different amounts, and the amount that you charge versus the amount you paid can be different. And these reimbursements are really just part of your what we call the fee system. And the fee system is based on charging everybody the same and understanding that there are times when you will accept less than that actual fee. And that is not a dual fee schedule. You're giving a contractual network discount. I don't know how long the staff have been with you in your office, but I want to kind of give a quick overview of how this should look visually. I want you to think in terms of a rainbow, because that's a beautiful thing. And what you should see and when you set your fees up properly is every one of your patients should fit neatly within one of these bands. So if a doctor has an actual fee for a first visit of say $350 for the services that you see, they may have a routine visit with the actual fee of $185. But if they're under a contract, you're going to see that $350 charge reduced to $220, and that's the contractual network discount. You'll see a routine office visit go from $185, billing the actual fee, down to about $95 for a routine visit. And we all know Medicare only covers 3 codes, and they only pay you one of 2 ways, either as a participating provider or non-participating provider. They never cover the exam x-ray therapy. And I want you to also know you can absolutely have a hardship fee schedule for your patients. Those patients do not have to join a network to get a discount, but you must have a written hardship policy. If you don't have one of those, as a member of ChiroHealth USA, we can supply you with one or the tools to put yours together. Same principle applies when you plugged in ChiroHealth USA in your office. Now, some of the clinics, you may have an initial visit of $350, and many of you chose a capped fee of like $150 or $175. Some of you chose a 20 or 30% discount. And you also had the option of saying, I offer a 20% discount with a maximum of 1 fee. And again, each clinic was able to set that individually. Your routine visits, same principle. You might bill out $185, but as a member of ChiroHealth, those patients could get a 20 or a 30% discount with a maximum fee of $65. And let me explain why that capped fee is so useful for many of the clinics. When someone says you get a 50% discount, the first thought I have is 50% off of what? But when I hear a 50% discount with a max of $150, now I know I have real savings and I have some control over what my out-of-pocket expense is going to be. Same principle applies on routine visits. If I'm a patient with limited benefits and I have a $50 or a $60 copay, and you recommend 30 visits and insurance only covers 15, it's comforting to me to know while I may get a discount of 20%, the most I'm going to have to pay out of pocket is about $50 or $60. That feels a whole lot like my copayment. And so I really don't care whether I have insurance or not at that point. And that's why you see so many patients transition from insurance to private pay. For our Medicare patients, Medicare never covers exam, x-ray, and therapy. And one of the options that you had as a provider is to set a fee for the modalities, for the procedures, re-exams, and x-rays. And those may all be a little bit different in each of your offices. And again, just to reiterate, hardship patients do not have to join a network. You absolutely can extend them a discount. So again, embracing the concept of the rainbow, the doctor's actual fee in the outer band, contracted fees at your Blues, your Aetnas, your Cignas, that's where your discount medical plan fee lies. Your regulated fees, which is your Medicare, personal injury in some states, workers' comp, it could be Medicaid in your state, or CHIPS program, the children's health insurance, and the hardship. You know, the reality is when you lay this out properly, things become a lot simpler at the front desk and in the insurance department. I want to encourage you to have a simple one-page financial policy. And we actually developed that a few years back. Some clinics use it, some do not. I highly recommend it. We'll make that part of your downloads or send it to you afterwards if it isn't in your download. But the purpose of this is for you to have just kind of a snapshot summary of your overall financial policy. And it might cover things like, what do you do with balances over a certain amount? How do you handle return checks, collection of deductibles and copays? How are you handling credit cards on file or auto debits? And you can cover other miscellaneous things in there as well. The one that we have and the one that we'll supply you with, and this we can send this to you in Word format, can be tweaked to fit your clinic. But what I did when I transitioned from offering discounts that weren't really compliant to trying to do things the right way is I did what any good American should do. I blamed it on the government and the regulators. And so the policy is simple. It says, in an effort to maintain compliance with various state and federal regulations, managed care and provider agreements, as well as billing and coding guidelines, I have adopted the following financial policies. I have one fee, applies to all patients for every service. You may be entitled to a network or contractual discount under the following circumstances. I'm in your health plan, Blue Cross Aetna Cigna. You're covered by a state or federal program with a mandated fee schedule. That could be Medicare, Medicaid, could be workers' comp or PI in your state. If you're a member of ChiroHealth, members of ChiroHealth USA are entitled to a network discount similar to our insured patients. It's $49 a year, covers you and your dependents. Ask our staff for more information. You could get a discount if you're eligible and choose a payment plan like an auto debit system that would allow for prompt payment discounts or patients who meet the hardship policy guidelines. And again, that's a separate document that you have. You don't have to do a wallet biopsy, but you need to take some types of steps to verify that patients meet a hardship, keep it for a relatively short period of time, and revalidate that over a period of time. And what we did was simple. All the patients that were getting discounts, quote, the wrong way, were put on notice that 30 days from this date or the first of the month, whatever you choose, as of this date moving forward, our office will be unable to extend any type of discounts other than those listed above. And you have them sign it and acknowledge it. Now, for those practices that may have had some type of prepay plans or other types of discounts that are already in place where people have prepaid for a certain number of visits, please continue to honor those. And when those expire, then you roll patients over to a more compliant model. And yes, that's ice cold water from a Yeti. Those things work unbelievably well. So talking to patients about ChiroHealth, let's get it going. When do you talk to them? Typically at your first contact. You need to decide, are they eligible? Meaning, is this someone that could use ChiroHealth USA? Could it be a benefit to them? And this can typically happen on the phone. You might talk to a shopper call. You kind of find out, are they a cash, insurance, Medicare, out-of-network patient, high-deductible patient? And as you gather that information, you begin to understand, wow, this is someone that might benefit from having ChiroHealth USA. I would highly recommend that the majority of your patients should receive a financial report of findings. Now, as a chiropractor, I know the importance of a clinical report of findings, but let's face it, patients often make decisions based on dollars and cents. And if we don't talk about the money, if you will, or get that out of the way on the first visit, that's why we'll see so many patients walk in the front door and out the back door when insurance runs out. And we really need to plug the holes in that bucket. And a strong financial report of findings can help you do that. All right, so let's kind of move into what happens when that phone rings, and let's start with our shopper call. All of your clinics get these types of calls, and if you don't believe they do, start tracking the stats of how many new patients call in versus how many of them actually show up. That's an interesting number to look at, because if your office is one that won't have a conversation with the patient about the possible cost, they may schedule with you, but they'll never darken your door. So please take a look at that so we can start capturing those patients and convert them. So here's how the conversation might go. The patient calls in and says, how much does it cost to see the doctor? And your staff would say, well, when was the last time you saw them? Well, I haven't been in before. Well, there is no set fee for the first visit, as it depends on what the doctor finds necessary, and it can also depend on what your insurance company requires. And then you're quiet and you listen, and the patient may say, I don't have health insurance. Not a problem, Ms. Jones. That's why we're part of ChiroHealth USA. That's a network you can join in the office for $49. By the way, that covers you and your family for a year, and members will receive a blank % discount off our normal fee with a maximum of $175. That typically includes your consult, your exam, and any necessary x-rays and the initial treatment if the doctor thinks he can help you. Do you prefer morning or afternoons? Now, if you're a patient and you call somewhere and they're evasive about the ballpark of what the visit may be, you may schedule an appointment, but you probably won't show up. And as far as quoting fees on the phone, I know doctors have different feelings about that. Decide where you come down on that issue. And if you don't want to discuss it at all, that's your call. But I will tell you that the patients that are calling your office today are no longer just patients. They are healthcare consumers. And we need to be as clear as we can, as transparent as we can about what they should expect, because otherwise they're simply not going to continue to come into your office. The next time the next type of patient I want to talk about is truly your cash patient. And sometimes this conversation can occur on the phone, and I just shared with you the script. It's very similar to the shopper call because you've determined they don't have insurance. But if that patient happens to be a walk-in, they come into your office and they fill out the paperwork. We usually know what category they're in by the time they finish out the paperwork. But we don't want to, quote, talk money with them before they get back and see the doctor and get services and get treated. And so if they're checking out for the first time and you determine they're a cash patient, then your conversation can go like this. Ms. Jones, today you had an exam, x-rays, and an adjustment and therapy. The charges for today are $325, unless you have one of those discount medical cards. Do you have one of those? And most patients will say, well, no, I'm not. What is that? Well, ChiroHealth is a network that we're part of for patients just like you who are uninsured. You can join right in the office for $49. It covers you and your dependents for a year. You'll receive a 30% discount off of our normal fees with a maximum of $175 or whatever your number is, whichever is less. As you can see, joining ChiroHealth will save you more than the $49 it costs to join today. Would you like to do that? Think about this. If you're about to write a check for $325 or $225, which would you choose? And if it costs you $49 to join the network and you save it on the first visit, that's why some 300,000+ patients have decided to join the network. It is truly a no-brainer for them. It's really like a Sam's Club for healthcare, and patients get that. If the patient says, yes, I would like to do that, absolutely enroll them. All of you are trained on how to do that in your in-service, but this is critical. If they don't choose to join the network, you charge your actual fees. You've got to stand by that. If you don't do that, you've completely undermined your attempt to be compliant. That is critical. And keep in mind again, you only have one fee, your actual fee. There is no such thing as my cash fee. You really need to embrace that. Let's talk about Medicare patients for a moment. If the Medicare patient is in your office for the first time, and if this wasn't discussed on the phone, you would be going over the charges for the day like this. Ms. Jones, Medicare doesn't cover all the services that we provide in our office. The non-covered charges today that you're responsible for are $325, unless you're a member of a discount medical plan like ChiroHealth. Do you have one of those cards? Well, no, I'm not. What is that? Same script. And staff, I want you to really get this. There is really only one script. It just depends on the opening sentence to it. So it's not like you've got to memorize 15 different ways to explain this. There really is one way. You tell them ChiroHealth is a network that we're part of for patients just like you who are partially insured. Since Medicare will only pay for your adjustment but nothing else, you can join in the office for $49 and it covers you and your immediate family for a year. You'll receive a 30% discount off of our normal fees with a maximum of, let's say, $150 for the first visit. As you can see, joining ChiroHealth can save you more than the $49 it costs to join. And it'll continue to save you money on any of the costs not covered by Medicare during the course of your treatment. Would you like to do that? Doctors, staff, every Medicare patient you see has either been to physical therapy or knows someone who's been to physical therapy. And they know that it can cost anywhere from $75 to $150 per visit to go to a therapist, to a PT. When you set your fees up with ChiroHealth and you're charging $10 or $15 per therapy and rehab, and they know the actual cost of that, say at a PT's office, it really becomes a no-brainer. And statistically, I can tell you in our practice, we've run the numbers, over 90% of our Medicare patients willfully pay for services that are not covered by Medicare. That includes the exam, the x-rays, therapy, and rehab. And over 90% of our Medicare patients absolutely participate in therapy and rehab. They need it. They're in a category of patients who clinically absolutely need the care. Many are deconditioned, and you know that these types of services can be of benefit to them. Unfortunately, many of us don't bother recommending therapy and rehab to Medicare because our mindset is, oh, Medicare doesn't pay for it, they won't pay for it. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our practice is a prime example of how they will pay for it, and that story repeats itself over and over and over again in a number of the clinics that we work with. All right, let's talk about the out-of-network call. Depending on which state you practice in, there are a lot of what they call closed panels. Or you may simply have decided, I don't want to deal with this network, or I'm tired of dealing with that network. They've got too much paperwork. They limit the care too much. So if you happen to get one of those out-of-network calls, what I would suggest is to have a conversation like this. So the patient may ask, is Dr. Smith part of the XYZ network? The staff should say, well, no, he's not, but do you mind me asking what your copay is under that plan, because your visits here could be less than seeing an in-network provider. And typically the patient may say, well, I have a $40 or a $50 copay. That allows you to continue the conversation. Well, Mr. Jones, Dr. Smith doesn't participate in that network because the limits they have on your care and the hassles of the paperwork that they put you through. That's why I joined ChiroHealth USA. That's a network for patients just like you. You can join for $49 here in the office, and your membership covers you and your entire family. As a member, there is no deductible, and the most your first visit would be is $125, and the most your routine visits is $45, which is lower than your network rate. Would you like me to schedule you for a consult and see if we can help? And most patients who are thinking and managing their expenses, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, sure, that makes great sense. Let's talk about the next group, which are limited benefits. Years ago, we had patients who either had coverage or didn't, and if they had it, it seemed to cover a lot of visits. These days, we have patients who may have 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 visits. And I know the frustration that happens when you're recommending 30 visits and the insurance only covers 15, and oftentimes that patient disappears on the 16th visit. You can stop that by having a conversation with the patient right up front. Please present these options during your financial report of findings, and my suggestion is make your full recommendations regardless of the limited benefits. And what I mean by that, please don't start seeing a patient and you intended to see them 30 times, but you only go over the first 15 visits with them, and then when the insurance runs out, your staff have to do everything they can to keep the patient under care, and the doctors get upset that why is so many patients dropping out, and you're trying to do recalls and get them back in. I suggest we be proactive about that. Let's go ahead and tell patients what the full recommendations are and show them a way to keep their care affordable. And it's by using this type of script. Ms. Jones, the doctor has recommended 30 visits for your care plan. It appears your insurance will help you with the first 15, and your copay is $50 per visit. On the 16th visit, our actual fees apply, and those can range from $90 to $125 unless you have one of those discount medical cards. Do you have one of those? Patient may respond, no, I don't. Not a problem, Ms. Jones. That's why Dr. Smith joined ChiroHealth USA. It's a network for people just like you. You can join it for $49 a year, and as a member, your visits will be capped at 45 instead of 90 to 125. And by the way, that covers your whole family for the year. As you can see, you save the membership fee on the very first visit, and you can continue care at about the same cost as when you have insurance. Would you like to do that? And again, as I said earlier, patients get this. They know that memberships, when they're part of them, they get discounts. That's how Sam's Club operates. That's how AARP operates. And if you need to just summarize it very quickly to a patient, it's like a Sam's Club for your health care. This topic is getting more and more popular. I was actually with a consultant yesterday, and he got word that his personal health insurance went from $700 a month for his family to $1,600 a month. And by the way, that was with an $8,000 deductible. You're seeing these patients in your office, and the reality is most of them will not hit that type of a deductible in our offices. So when you're going over your financial report of findings or at the end of the first visit, here's how I suggest that you cover this. And do keep in mind that patients that have high deductibles, even if you are in their health plan as a participating provider, those patients have the legal option to opt out of filing their health insurance. That is a formal process that they undergo that we're going to cover in detail here. What you did not hear me say is you can force, coerce, or require patients to opt out. Our job, the front desk staff, the insurance staff job, is to present to patients what their options are for paying for their care, and then we must let them make the choice. So we have to give them the information to make the right choice. So let's go over that script. Ms. Jones, we verified your benefits, and it appears that you have a $6,000 deductible before insurance will start paying for your care. It's unlikely that you'll hit that deductible during your care here, and those visits you're paying could run $90 to $125, depending on what is recommended by the doctor. And most patients with high deductibles find that care is much more affordable if they use a discount medical card. Do you happen to have one of those? Patient, no, I don't. Not a problem, Ms. Jones. That's why we're part of ChiroHealth USA. That's a network you can join for $49 for the year. And as a member, your visits will be capped at 50 instead of 90 to 125. And by the way, that covers you and your whole family for the year. So you can see you'll save the membership fee on the very first visit, and you'll continue your care at about the same cost as when you had insurance. Would you like to do that? Sure, that makes sense. You know, there's going to be the occasional patient that they don't want to do this, and those patients should be charged your actual fee. But most common sense thinking people who are looking at dollars and cents, they get it, they understand it, and that's why so many of them choose to or opt into using ChiroHealth. Now, when you offer a patient or you explain to the patient that has the high deductible, you have to use this form. I don't know if all the clinics have used this, but if you're going to have patients opt out, you must use this. This is a document that was put together by our legal team, and it is basically a statement. It is called the election to self-pay. Look at your provider agreements. Make sure that you're not violating any of the terms in that. That's not something I can do for you, but you can rest assured that even if your provider agreement says you must file on behalf of the patient, here's what happens. These are the crazy and conflicting rules we have to deal with. Federal law supersedes your provider agreement. That's not my opinion. That's straight from some attorneys that are the American Association of Professional Coders, and many attorneys hold that same position. Please understand the patient has the right to opt out. They are not required to opt out. And it's a simple PDF form that you can either fill out on your computer, filling in the information. I, the assigned patient, understand and agree that doctor is part of this network. I'm part of this network, but I'm choosing to opt out. That's the long and short of the form. You can certainly read it on your own, and you basically have them date it and sign it, and you file that to the patient's chart. Now, let's fast forward. What if a patient has a $5,000, $6,000 deductible? They go and rupture a gallbladder, and their deductible is met 3 weeks later. Now you would use the revocation of election to self-pay when the patient changes their mind. The deductible is met, everything goes back to normal. And basically the patient is saying, I was opting out of filing my health insurance. From this point forward, I want my health insurance filed. You do not go back and refile those claims when they had opted out. They chose to opt out. You only start filing from that point forward. And again, that's explained on our website. You can download that document and just please read through that, and you can either have the patient fill it out kind of online in a fillable PDF form, or you can simply print it out and fill in those blanks yourself. And again, just file that to the patient's chart. That's the details of the revocation of election to self-pay. If the patient doesn't opt out, absolutely file their insurance. If they do opt out and choose to opt back in, make sure you get the second document signed. I know most all of us in practice, we always want to grow our practice, and one of the best ways to do it is by taking care of families. And I had the same challenge as many of you did. You know, if mom and dad and sister and brother are coming in and everybody's being charged $50, $60 a visit, even if it's wellness, it can kind of get expensive. And I have seen many chiropractors use their DC as a doctor of creativity because we can really make up some interesting plans, if you will. My suggestion is if you're seeing families, continue to do so, but let them know that you have a new way of handling that. And you truly can have a tiered reimbursement for those family members. You could, let's say for a first visit, you could have $150 for the first member, $125 for the second, $75 for the third, $50 for the fourth. Same principle applies on a routine visit. You could have $60 for the first member, $50 for the third, $40, and $30. You get to structure those however you would like to. However, I'm going to discourage you from doing what is known as a dumb doctor deal. Doctors value your services. Don't try to charge $1 or $2 or $3 for a patient. Your malpractice stays the same, your rent stays the same, your overhead stays the same. You cannot discount your way to success. So be reasonable when you're offering those discounts. We're not going to tell you what you can or what you cannot charge, but please use your business hat, the business side of your brain when you're putting these together, and don't undervalue your services. That's my soapbox. Make sure that when your patients are checking out and they enroll in ChiroHealth USA, that they are aware that this covers their family. Make sure that you're letting patients know that you welcome and that you treat families and that you have a way of making care affordable for all of them. Those are the main categories that we deal with when we're talking to patients about ChiroHealth USA. But I want to talk to you about kind of something outside of the box. Many people look at ChiroHealth and think, well, that's a conversation that just should happen at the front desk or in the insurance department. But the reality is it can happen anywhere. If your office is like mine and you have patients doing therapy and rehab, we know that those staff interact more and longer with those patients than we might in a treatment room. And just imagine this scenario. Joe's coming in for rehab and he's sitting there doing his exercises and he tells one of the staff, you know, I'd really like to get my cousin in, but he doesn't have insurance. You want your staff to go, bummer? Or would you like them to say, well, you know, there's really no reason your cousin can't come in. That's the reason we're part of ChiroHealth USA. That's a network for patients just like him that don't have health insurance. It's $49 a year. It covers him and his family, and the most their first visit is $125, and their routine visits are no more than $45. You know, that's a lot better conversation to have. And again, you know, I don't want my staff talking fees out in the therapy and rehab area, but there are certainly times that conversation comes up. And the reality is, so what if others hear it? They may be thinking the same thing. So discuss how you feel about that, or if you hear that kind of conversation starting, have one of your team members maybe take them to a private room if you'd prefer to have that discussed in private. Once your staff understand how your office reaches out to every patient, regardless of whether they have insurance, then I absolutely think you'll start seeing more referrals from your staff because they're equipped. They know how to explain your overall financial policy to a patient, and there is no reason any patient shouldn't come into your office. They should never think, oh, I have to have insurance if I want to go to the chiropractor, because you have chosen to plug in the network and now you can appeal to more patients. And that truly is a great way to build your practice by using the discount medical plan. So all of your team members should know how to use ChiroHealth to encourage those referrals. I encourage you to teach them, test them, have staff meetings, role play it, get them comfortable with the conversation. All right, we're ready to recap. You need to understand that ChiroHealth is not a time of service discount, and you no longer have what? A cash fee. ChiroHealth USA is for every patient with non-covered services. You have one fee for each service. It applies to everyone. You may be paid less than your charges as part of your contractual network discounts, which can include the health plans, the Blues and the Aetnas, mandated fees, Medicare, Medicaid, discount medical plans like ChiroHealth. You can have a prompt payment, time of service, of about 5 to 15% for your insured patients, but never on the covered services. And you absolutely should have a hardship program plugged into your practice. If patients do not join, they should be charged your actual fee. Please consider using that one-page simple financial summary as a tool to help explain the overall financial policy. And most importantly, to be fully compliant, you should discuss ChiroHealth with all patients for the non-covered services. This should be part of your normal routine during your checkout or the financial report of findings, not just when you think about it. And Yoda said it best, do or do not, there is no try. And honestly, there's no such thing as being mostly compliant. We started this off with how ChiroHealth USA can not only help you remain compliant, but grow your practice. And if you will plug these scripts and learn these scripts and get comfortable with them, you will absolutely see more of those insurance patients transition to private pay. You'll stop seeing them run out when the insurance runs out. You absolutely can see more families. You can stop the shopper calls. You compete with the out-of-network plans, and you found a solution for those patients with those crazy high deductibles, and you absolutely can see more of your Medicare patients pay for the non-covered services willingly. And most importantly, and probably the primary reason you join ChiroHealth USA, is so you can continue to practice with some peace of mind. Well, that wraps us up, and what I'd like to do, technology permitting, is to move into the Q&A section. Christy, are you with me?
I am here. Oh, so we have our first question just come through. And for those of y'all, the one-page financial policy Word document is loaded in the handout section. You can print that off. So let's see. We have Dr. Quintana. I'm going to unmute you. Dr. Quintana, are you there?
Yeah.
Wonderful. You can go ahead and ask Dr. Foxworth your question.
Oh, I just want to know how we can go about getting the scripts that he talked about today to have in our office, if it's something on the website or if it's our email.
And yes, that is for all of our ChiroHealth USA contracted providers, you should all have your username and login to access on our website. At the very top of the screen that says CHUSA Provider Login. You click there and log in using your username and password, or the shortcut, if we set that up on your desktop computer for you, there's a tab once you're logged in that says Resources, and you can download the scripts. You can download all of the forms, all of the handouts, everything. And actually, this webinar will even, a copy of the recording will be there as well. So if you want your staff to come back and watch the recording, we'll be sure to send everybody an email about that as well. And if you need assistance getting your username and password to log in there, you can email us and let us know. Your account manager will be happy to get that information and reset that up for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's see. Do we have any other questions, Dr. Foxworth? Is there anything else that you want to add real quick?
Yes, just to clarify, isn't there a button they can click on the side of their screen to access most of the documents that we've referenced?
Oh, absolutely there is.
Yeah. So yeah, just to clarify, you can certainly go to the website after this, but if you'll look to the side of your screen, you should see a section right now that allows you to click those on and download those while you're here on the webinar. Okay, the other question looks like is coming from Dr. Pam Levy, and it actually is a repeat of the prior question. So Dr. Levy, unless you have any other questions, hopefully the prior answer took care of that.
Oh, no, this is another good one. Let's see. Dr. Mike, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead. This is another great question that you have.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious if the $49 yearly fee is something that they could write off with their taxes at the end of the year.
You know, that's a great question, and I wish I had a great answer for you, but I think that's really going to depend on the tax code. I know that healthcare services in general are deductible, but only if those expenses exceed a certain percentage of your income. So I am going to be, I am not an attorney, but I have stayed in a Holiday Inn Express, but I am not a tax attorney. So Doc, I'll do my best to get you an answer to that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So our next question comes from Leslie McCaden. Leslie, are you there?
Hi, yes.
All right. You can go ahead and ask your question for Dr. Foxworth.
I just wanted to see how, again, if we have Medicare patients, how will this work in conjunction with Medicare if we can put it through Medicare, and then any of the therapies you said we can go and use the ChiroHealth?
Right. All right. Let me try to recap that for you. First of all, you need to understand that the CMT codes are always a covered service. They're just not always considered medically necessary. So ChiroHealth USA is only for non-covered services. That's the exam, the x-rays, and the therapy. So when I see a Medicare patient, I will file to Medicare the CMT codes. I will charge the non-covered services to the patient separately, and they pay the ChiroHealth USA rates. Does that make sense?
That does
You
perfectly.
do
Yes.
not have to send in the non-covered services to Medicare unless the Medicare patient insists that you do. And it's no big issue whether you send them in or don't, but those are considered, it's almost like you handle them just conceptually is they kind of have an A and a B account. The A account is what's billed to Medicare. The B account is for the non-covered services. And many of you do that now in your software when you see a patient and who may be getting covered services, and then maybe they're getting nutrition and pillows or orthotics. A lot of clinics will kind of set that up in a separate account so they keep the insurance separate from the patient's portion. That's really going to depend on how your software operates. Does that help?
Okay. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, so our next question is going to come from Tessa. Let's see, hold on one second. Tessa, are you there? Unmuted her. Tessa? Well, her question, apparently we couldn't, something must be wrong, so I'm trying to unmute her. But her question is, and we get this one a lot, is it says, I'm confused as to why you say that cash patients should also join. If they just want to pay the cash, why can't they? And I think there's a lot of confusion around cash patients and cash fees.
Okay, great question. Thank you for asking it. This webinar is for people that have probably already been through the training, and most of you could probably answer that for Tess. Here's the challenge. When we're in practice today, we have layers of regulations that we have to comply with. There's your Board of Examiners, your managed care agreements, the Department of Insurance in your state, State Attorney General, Medicare, and CMS. And there are many states who have rules against charging higher fees to insurance or to PI than they do to cash patients. It's considered a dual fee schedule. And if doctors are charging more to insurance than they do to cash, it can actually, and they're not reporting it, or they're not reporting their actual fees, it can be considered an anti-kickback violation. If you happen to waive a deductible or copay, that's on the insured patients. But the biggest challenge is doctors should have one fee schedule, and they should charge everyone the same. And like I said, there's more and more states that have that dual fee schedule issue, and it is a huge problem. But I want to take it another step. The very reason that I started ChiroHealth USA is I was giving a discount to a cash patient. And let me tell you what happened. I'm taking care of her kids, and her family, or her husband. Back at that time, I'm charging $35 or $40 a visit. Life is good. I'm happy. They're happy. She gets involved in an auto accident. And as we often do, we build our normal fees, which were probably $80 or $90. Well, this really upset this lady, and she literally comes back into my office and says, Doc, it's guys like you ripping off insurance companies that keep my family from affording health care. I saw what you billed out to my insurance. Well, at that point, it's like, you know what, Ms. Jones? I did submit those fees, but I made a huge mistake. I never let you know what my actual fee was or that I was trying to help you. And so those practices that are out there who are charging higher to insurance and PI and comp and lower to cash, when that patient changes over, even if there is not a rule in your state about that, we have to understand how that looks in the eyes of a patient. I'm not saying don't offer your patients who are paying out of pocket a lower fee. I'm just saying we need to document correctly, code correctly, bill correctly, collect correctly. And if we're offering a discount, the discount medical plan is hands down one of the simplest ways to offer discounts and to keep your financial policy compliant. That was a long answer to a short question, but I hope that answered it for you, Tessa.
All right, so our next question comes from Sarah. Sarah, are you there?
Yes.
You can let Dr. Foxworth know your question.
Okay, so we are currently part of a corporation that will be disbanding, and we're going to be going independent. We've been using ChiroHealth USA for a long time and are very familiar with the way it works and how to convert our patients in our practice. But the question we have is, how do we set our fee schedule if we'd like to change it from what it is now? Right now, our fee schedule is set for ChiroHealth USA through the corporation.
Right.
And are there regulations on how we set our fees for new patients and individual services?
No, they're not, quote, regulations at all. I mean, you get to decide what your discounts are going to be under ChiroHealth USA. ChiroHealth USA is a network that works in conjunction with what's called a DMPO, that's a Discount Medical Plan Organization, and discount medical plans are regulated by the Department of Insurance in most states. And so it's a provider agreement. The uniqueness of it is that you as a provider get to set your level of discounts. So there's not a regulation about what you set. We're using the entity of a DMPO, which allows you to set your level of discounts and to keep it compliant. Now, if you are part of a corporation and your practice is breaking out from that, our agreement isn't with directly with the corporations. It's actually with the individual providers. So if at some point you no longer are a member of that group, then all you need to do is shoot us an email, give us a call, say, hey, we're breaking away from a previous entity. We would like to set up our own discounts directly with ChiroHealth USA, and one of our account managers can help you with that. Not a problem at all. Take this a little further step. There are doctors who really don't know what their discount should be, and sometimes they want to take a deep dive into their fees and make sure they are billing appropriately. If you want to do that, that is certainly an option. We have that available as a service to you with one of our consultants. There's no charge for you to use that service at all. So they can help you take a deep dive, set up your discounts, make sure you're charging appropriately, help you plug in your hardship policy, and several other aspects of your financial policy. It's as simple as telling us you want to make a change, and then you decide, do you want to do the simple route, you set it up, or would you like a consultant to help you with that? Does that answer your question, Sarah?
It did.
Great.
Thank you, Sarah. So our next question comes from Tiffany, and when I told her that we were going to unmute her, she said, oh, I can't really talk right now, but if you could just ask the question, I'm listening to the answer. So she wants to know, what if a Medicare patient goes on maintenance? Would the adjustment then be covered under ChiroHealth USA? Okay, great question. And I love giving short answers to short questions, but unfortunately that isn't going to happen with this one. Medicare is an interesting bird. The CMT code is always a covered service. It's not always medically necessary. And you report to Medicare with the AT when it's active treatment, and with the GA if it's not active treatment and you got the ABN sign. I have different consultants that will tell you you should charge your actual fee when they go on maintenance, the higher fee. I have consultants that say you can offer a discount because you're freed from the Medicare agreement. I have a letter from Medicare. One letter says you have to continue to charge the par or non-par amount. And I have others that say use an S8990, which I don't agree with because you should never use that with Medicare. I will tell you, after listening to all of the experts, I am taking the most conservative position that I know. Medicare has told me what par and non-par reimbursements are. And so when my patients transition from active treatment to maintenance care, and they're still getting an adjustment, I am going to charge based on whether I'm participating or non-participating. Here's another perspective for you. I think we also have to be mindful of the message that we send to patients and how different fees for what appears to be the exact same service can cause some confusion. If you're a Medicare patient and Medicare is paying, let's say, $30 for a particular adjustment, and now you're only going to charge $20 for the adjustment because it's not active treatment, honestly, does that feel any different to the patient, whether it's active or whether it's maintenance care? Did your costs go down? Did your overhead go down? Did anything really change other than the AT? And from my perspective,
I don't like the confusion of or the possible message that it sends to a patient to not be completely forthcoming with me. And let's face it, if Mary Medicare knows, if she says, oh, this is just a maintenance visit, it's 20, and if it's active, it's 35, my concern is, are we encouraging patients to maybe be a little loose with the truth and not accurately tell us what's going on with them? They may minimize their complaint or their problem. And quite frankly, that can change how we might treat them. So I don't think I would ever have an issue with a judge or an auditor or anyone else if I am sticking with the Medicare allowables, if I'm par or non-par. That is my personal opinion. And as I said, you can talk to many consultants. I have done so, and you will absolutely get conflicting opinions on that. And so just be very clear, based on the information I have, that is my position individually. Long answer to a short question, Tiffany, but it is a bit complicated.
And our next question comes from Dr. Fraunhofer. So, and I hope I pronounced that right, Doctor. Are you there?
That's right. Go ahead with this question if you have access to it, Christy.
I will. Let's see. His question is, how about the patients that are in Medicare Advantage plans? Would they still join CHUSA?
Yep. Good question, Doc. You know, Medicare is Medicare is Medicare. A couple of things change when it's an Advantage plan, but it's still basically Medicare and somebody else's wrapper. So yes, those patients can absolutely still join ChiroHealth USA for their non-covered services. Now, let me also point this out. There are several different Medicare Advantage plans out there. And one of the benefits to those beneficiaries of an Advantage plan is sometimes they will cover above and beyond what Medicare covers. So you may see some that could possibly cover an exam or an x-ray or a therapy. So make sure that you verify those insurance benefits properly. Find out what their Medicare Advantage plans do cover, because they do have some latitude in the services that they offer to those beneficiaries. And if those services are not covered, ChiroHealth is always for non-covered services, and they can absolutely join the network.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Foxworth. And we are getting to the point, it looks like we don't have any questions now, but I did want to let you know that in the next 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to get a follow-up email to the webinar. It's going to go over where we're going to place the recording so that you can have access to it, and again, share that with your staff. If you have additional questions for Dr. Foxworth that you think of, this happens to me all the time, I'll think of it 5 minutes after it's too late to ask the question. You can email those to info@ChiroHealthUSA.com and just put CHUSA 101 in the subject line, and we'll make sure that those get to Dr. Foxworth, and he'll respond to those, or I will respond to those if I can. There will also be a link so that you can submit those questions even after the fact. And even if your staff has questions that they would like to answer, you can also direct those to your account managers, and they'll be happy to answer those for you. But I don't see any more questions. Dr. Foxworth,
All right.
Is there anything else
Just want to wrap up and say thanks so much for attending this. This is kind of like I said, old home week. This is mostly everybody on this webinar is family or part of the ChiroHealth USA family. I truly appreciate you participating with the network. I hope it's helping you protect your practice and keeping you where you can have some peace of mind. And now I hope you see how, if you fully implement it, that you absolutely can build and grow your practice. Thank you so much for being a part of ChiroHealth, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thanks so much, Christy.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Foxworth. Y'all have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll see you again, same time, same place, next week for our next webinar presentation in the webinar series. Bye-bye, everyone.